The knock on my door came at 6 a.m. sharp. 2 uniformed officers stood there, expressionless, one holding a clipboard, the other resting a hand on his belt. "Are you Jason Miller?" the taller one asked. "Yeah," I said slowly, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. He handed me a folded packet of papers. "You've been served. There's a temporary restraining order filed against you by Ms. Emily Carter." For a moment the world just stopped. Emily. My girlfriend. The woman I'd fallen asleep beside barely 2 weeks ago, who had whispered that she loved me. "What the hell is this?" I asked, flipping through the papers. Name. And words like harassment, threatening behavior, unwanted contact. My throat went dry. "Sir, we're not here to discuss details," the officer said. "You're ordered to have no contact with Ms. Carter. Stay at least 500 feet away from her home, workplace, or vehicle. Do you understand?" I nodded numbly. They left me standing there, barefoot on the porch, holding the papers that claimed I was something I'd never been. First, I thought it was a mistake. Emily had to be confused. Maybe someone else was harassing her, maybe she panicked. We'd had a few arguments lately, sure, but nothing even close to this. I tried to call her anyway. Straight to voicemail. Then it hit me. If I even tried to contact her, I'd be violating the order. Could be arrested. So I didn't. Instead, I sat on the couch for hours, reading the paperwork again and again, trying to make sense of the words that didn't belong to my reality. It wasn't until the 3rd time through that I noticed the date she'd filed it. Just 2 days after I caught her lying. 2 days after I'd asked, gently but firmly, why her coworker Ryan had texted her at midnight saying, "Can't stop thinking about last night." She'd laughed it off then, told me I was being paranoid. I'd wanted to believe her. Chosen to. Now, the truth was starting to bleed through the paper in my hands. That restraining order wasn't about safety. It was about silence. I decided to obey it perfectly. The next morning I called my lawyer, an old friend from college named Pete. He scanned the documents and frowned. "This doesn't look like a domestic violence report," he said. "She's filed it as a civil order, not a criminal one. Which means? Yes. She doesn't have evidence. It's just her word, and she's using it to keep you away from something." That night, I parked my car across the street from the condo we'd shared. Not close enough to violate the order, just far enough to see the driveway. The lights in the upstairs window flicked on around 9. And then, a shadow moved behind the curtain. 2 shadows. One tall. One unmistakably hers. My chest tightened, but I didn't move. I just watched as a man, Ryan, walked onto the porch, holding a bottle of wine. Emily stepped outside, laughing, in one of the dresses I'd bought her. So that was it. She'd replaced me and then erased me. I should have been furious, but what I felt instead was cold clarity. If she wanted distance, she'd get it. But I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story. Over the next few days, I started gathering everything I had. Photos of us together. Timestamps that proved she'd been with me on the date she'd claimed I was harassing her. Screenshots of her texts, messages full of hearts and "I miss you," just days before she filed. Then I noticed something else. In her financial statements. Yes, I still had access to our shared cloud storage. There was a large transfer to a company I didn't recognize. When I looked it up, I nearly laughed. It was a private real estate firm. She was buying the condo outright. And she couldn't do it while my name was still attached to the lease. That was her plan. Remove me legally, then replace me quietly. I let it play out. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer. "The judge wants your response. You can either contest the order or let it expire. Up to you." Smiled. "I'll contest it." At the hearing, Emily sat across from me in a pale blue blouse, looking smaller than I remembered. Ryan was in the back, pretending not to watch. The judge glanced at her paperwork first, frowning. "Ms. Carter, you've listed several claims of threatening messages and unwanted contact. Do you have copies of these messages?" She hesitated. "No, Your Honor," he deleted them. Pete stood. Your Honor, I have here 2 months' worth of messages between Ms. Carter and my client. None contain threats. In fact, he slid the printed texts forward. They show a loving relationship right up until Mr. Miller discovered Ms. Carter's affair with her co-worker, Ryan Mitchell. The courtroom went silent. Emily's eyes widened. That's not. But Pete didn't stop. Additionally, we have evidence that Ms. Carter filed this order 2 days after attempting to remove Mr. Miller's name from their shared property lease, and 1 day before transferring funds to purchase that property in her name only. The judge's gaze hardened. Ms. Carter, is that true? She fumbled for words, stammering something about safety and misunderstanding. But the damage was done. The judge dismissed the order immediately. Mr. Miller, you are free to resume your life without restriction. Ms. Carter, I advise you to be cautious before using this court's authority to settle personal grievances. When it was over, Emily caught up to me in the hallway. Jason, please, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I turned to her slowly. You lied to a court. You tried to destroy my life because you didn't have the courage to admit what you did. Tears filled her eyes. I was scared. No, I said quietly. You were selfish. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Don't, I warned. You taught me to respect distance, remember? For a moment she just stood there, the reality sinking in. Ryan appeared from the end of the hallway, watching nervously. I gave her one last look. You two deserve each other. Then I walked away. Later that night, I sat alone in my apartment. The city lights flickered through the blinds, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. The restraining order had been her weapon, but obedience had turned it into her undoing. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't chased her. I'd let the truth speak for itself, and it had done far more damage than I ever could. Still, beneath the quiet satisfaction was something heavier. A dull ache where love used to live. I'd wanted closure, but what I got was emptiness. I picked up my phone, scrolled through old photos of us. Her laughter, her eyes, the way she used to lean into me when she was tired. For a moment I almost missed her. Then I remembered the look on her face in court when the truth unraveled. That was the moment I finally understood. Love built on lies doesn't end in heartbreak. It ends in silence. And I was done speaking her name ever again.